Okay, so in this video I'm going to be talking about Max Martin and the work which he's done and his stylistic trends. So unlike the past two, Max Martin is the first director producer, which I've seen that only does music videos or has only done music videos. So it's actually quite nice to see one producer which has done music videos, television and films. The other one has done music videos, film, and it's interesting to see that this one has just done music videos. So yeah, I think that this director definitely stands out in that sense on its own. It also shows that you don't need to go into films particularly. Okay, so honestly, I've never seen such a long list for videos which anybody had made. What I thought was interesting is that it personally had a lot of songs which I listen to on like a daily basis. So it was interesting to see that I like a lot of videos from one director's style. I thought that was quite an interesting thing. Like obviously I'll watch a few others which are a bit different, but the majority of my music which I listen to and watch are by Max Martin. Obviously I can't talk about all of these videos, but I thought that I would first list them and then go into the stylistic trends after. So he's actually worked with a lot of successful artists over the years. I personally only found his top videos which he's done, but I'm sure that you could find a lot more from previous years which has accomplished. So he has directed Hit Me Baby One More Time by Britney Spears, obviously. It's Gonna Be Me by NSYNC. I Kissed a Girl, Teenage Dream, Last Friday Night, Part of Me, Raw, and Dark Horse by Katy Perry. California Girls, So What, One More Night, We're Never Getting Back Together, Shake It Off, Blank Space, Bad Blood, Can't Feel My Face, Can't Stop the Feeling, Problem, Bang Bang, Dangerous Woman, Into You, and Thank You Next. So I forgot to mention, the songs which I've just listed are ones that have been in the top charts, top 100. Particularly what's interesting is that these were all in the top 20, I think. So he's done some really good work, I think that shows. Okay, so to start with, the stylistic trends. Okay, so one thing which I did notice that he did was quite a lot of throwback ideas. This isn't just particular to Max Martin, but he did it especially with Britney Spears in Hit Me Baby One More Time. I think that it's quite an interesting music video compared to what the song is about. It also just, again, it really allows you to see what the artist is thinking compared to what the audience was thinking. So it's quite nice to see that comparison. So another one of his typical like cliche things is that it's a very girly girl situation. By that I mean quite pink, quite fluffy, quite prissy and all of that. Obviously I think what makes his girly girl a bit different is that he takes it extreme. Like a lot of other directors which I've seen have only taken it like, oh yeah, we're just gonna put a dress on them and do the hair and put some makeup on. He goes full out, like extreme, even from like where their location is. And I think that that's why his girly girl situation really stands out. I actually chose California Girls for this one because honestly I think it just really sums up this whole point so well. It's ridiculous. It's a really interesting music video, to be fair, the way which it's all composed and everything, so I think it's quite clever. The way which he's like twisted in the whole girly girl with a few other elements as well, like the board game, for example, and the rapper, Snoop Dogg, obviously, same thing. But you see what I mean? It's really interesting the way in which this director changes the girly girl idea, but then still includes it. And that's something which I was really looking for. So another typical thing which he does is synchronized dancing. This isn't exactly typical or unique. A lot of directors do this, but it's interesting to see how he will, although they'll all be dancing the same, he will mix the outfits up compared to the main artist, so then it will just make them stand out a little bit more and have something different at least. I think that that's quite a nice touch, bearing in mind the whole situation, but yeah. So moving on to the next point, what Max does really well is this whole continuous scene flow. I did see this in 3 examples, but my personal favourite was by Taylor Swift, We're Never Getting Back Together. The way which it's all composed and they're just able to like walk through without even seeing a thing. It adds a nice flow to the whole music video, and it makes the audience feel as though it's just one of those comedian sets which you sometimes see. It's quite interesting actually the way which it's all done. But for this next point, Max, he creates sort of a retro 1990s, 1980s, 2000 time. I don't know why I said it like that. Just with the clothing and how they're acting and what they're doing. So I did see this in quite a few examples. I originally struggled to pinpoint one particular music video to this point, but I actually think it was quite interesting and that it didn't need to just go in, if I'm honest. Yeah. But I think it also works well because he adjusts and changes the saturation a little bit to match the theme of what they're wearing and what they're doing. So it all adds to that idea of retro. 1980s to 2000s. I'm not sure which time, so I'm going to say more. Okay, so for this next point, Max does really well. Again, it's quite a unique thing, but he always puts in strange situations. For example, in Bad Blood by Taylor Swift, I know that I keep referring to the videos which I've put, and obviously there's going to be a repeat of artists, but these were the top videos which he's made, so I thought that it would be best to talk about these ones in particular. Anyway, I digress. So it's quite an odd scene. Okay, so we were just talking about the strange situations which Max creates. I genuinely quite like this idea, as a lot of them are quite surreal and out there. Although I only chose one example for this, I feel as though I could have picked all of the videos which he's won awards for, with some element in them which makes it so unique. It's really good actually, the way which it just draws in your attention. You're like, oh, okay, ooh. Which does show that it's a good music video. Okay, so another thing which Max did, which I did notice, is that he plays with the extremes of the saturation of the film, basically. So sometimes he will turn it really bright, and then other times he will turn it really monochrome. So yeah, it's interesting to see how he uses these contrasts. Most of the time they're not together, but then sometimes he will have flashbacks with them having the extremes. It's just interesting to see the way which he doesn't just make it boring with the whole video being black and white or full of colour. It's interesting, genuinely. I'll look out for that. So the next thing I want to talk about is playing with different speeds. By this I'm just on about like slow-mo or speeding things up or just like normal. Although I feel as though my example wasn't brilliant, he genuinely does play around with all of this stuff quite a lot. It definitely shows some style. I think it's quite a generic thing to do though. I probably will end up doing this, I'm not gonna lie. but I don't think you could say that it's just unique to this director. So another thing which I really like about what Max does is that he creates a similar vibe going through a lot of different scenes. So that could be a theme of fire, or one person travelling, or the idea of seeing the car, or somebody opening letters, or in water, for example. I really love this idea and how it relates, and I think I want to do something similar to this. I genuinely, I really like this idea. And I think that it's quite easy to relate a lot of different things. So for example, we're in Hong Kong, you could do transport, which is quite easy. So you could do, for example, a taxi, a bus, a car, the ferry, technically a plane, but that's a bit difficult, you need to buy a ticket somewhere. Or the underground, there's so many. Or if you wanted to do water, for example, you could do a pool, you could do the sea, you could do a lake, you could do a waterfall. There's so much with that idea. It's a really, I love that idea. It's quite a strong one, in my opinion. Okay, so one thing which I did notice is that for some certain artists, he chooses to create a fake concert scenario. He doesn't do this for all of his artists, but for example Pink, I think she quite likes that vibe going on. So he does create that for her. Personally, I think it's a bit needy and a bit odd that they're just speaking to a fake crowd for one, and if they have a crowd, or even weirder if they're just speaking in a very, very loud. This was the most exciting thing I had to say about his style in particular, and this was the fact that he always includes something unique in his videos, like always, without a doubt. And it's normally a bit strange, so for this one I chose It's Gonna Be Me by NSYNC, as personally I love this song and I think it's amazing, but everything in his video has to be special or have something unique about it, and this one just stood out to me so much, even compared to the others. Like, it's really, really good. I also think that it just makes him stand out as well as an individual, and it makes the artists, it gets them more publicity, because people will be like, oh, have you seen that new music video where this guy is attached to some strings, or this guy is a toy on a shelf? It's just really interesting the way in which they do it. And then he obviously composes the shot to get certain elements which we all know. For example, in It's Gonna Be Me, you can see that they've got, when you're in like a shop, it's normally typically a kid's shop or something like that, and there's loads of stuff on the shelves, and then you can see there's like a metal floor and grids everywhere. He gets really close in on that, and they've obviously recreated a massive one for the whole set, but it's like details like that which really show the whole perspective and size of these technically toys, but it's really, really good, genuinely. So the next one which I wanted to include was that they always have a bed scene. Yeah, it's a bit odd, I'm not gonna lie, but I think it adds to some of the styles if they're quite seductive already, as it can presume a few things. Also, it makes it comfy for the artist to be lying down on a bed rather than lying down on something hard like a concrete floor. I'm not really sure what to say about this one, but yeah, I've seen it used quite a few times though. Not just by Max, but yeah, it's something to think about at least. So for the penultimate point, I want to talk about how Max sometimes gets other actors involved in the music videos, even if they're not dancing and singing and doing everything like that. I quite like this idea with them being a little bit more natural and casual rather than all just doing synchronized dancing is definitely something to consider. I'm not sure how I feel completely about it, but yeah, it's definitely something to think about. So for the final thing I want to say about this director is that he loves his close-ups, which, I'm not gonna lie, they're my favourite types of shots. I know I mentioned this in a previous post, but I genuinely love this shot. I love how it enables you to get really close. There's some sort of voyeurism with it as well, and that it creates a certain like ambiguity as well about what actually all this subject matter is. It genuinely, I really love that. And I've seen a few videos which he's done which is just completely close-ups, and then they'll occasionally they will occasionally pan up the subject, or they'll use a pedestal shot or something like that just to show what everything else is going on. I think it's a really good idea though. So that sums up my Max Martin director's video.